Thank you, everybody, for attending our Zoom webinar tonight with community leaders this evening. We are very grateful for our panelists' time to address common critical questions within our community about the increased ICE presence we're experiencing. My name is Michelle Whitty, and I'm a member of our local League of Women Voters of Woodbury-Cottage Grove area. And I'm here this evening with LWV WCGA President Andrea Hobley, who will serve as your moderator. Again, our panelists tonight are Jeffrey Dahl, Woodbury City Administrator, Christie Denson, Chair of Woodbury Community Foundation, Chief Pete Koerner, Cottage Grove Public Safety Director and Police Chief, Chief Jason Posel, Woodbury Public Safety Director and Police Chief, Lori Steiger, President and CEO, Woodbury Area Chamber of Commerce, and Christine Tucci Osorio, Superintendent of School District 622, serving portions of Woodbury, North St. Paul, Maplewood, and Oakdale. There is a lot to learn tonight, so here's how we've structured our time together. We'll begin with our community panelists from the Woodbury Area Chamber of Commerce, Woodbury Community Foundation, and School District 622, who each have about 5 minutes to share their views from the field and answer questions. We will then have the remainder of the time to hear directly from both directors of public safety and police chiefs in Woodbury and Cottage Grove, and also from the City of Woodbury administrator. They will answer questions as appropriate together. We've asked our panelists to post in the chat any specific links or documents or policies that can be easily shared with you so they can focus their remarks on the ground realities and solutions in our community. While we recognize that ICE or DHS may have powers local officials cannot override, the context of our webinar tonight is to better understand the powers and potential of our local government to ensure safety for all in our community. A few additional house rules. This is a Zoom webinar format and only panelists are visible. Zoom attendees are not visible or able to talk with the webinar. However, you can pose questions in the Q&A function that's at the bottom of your Zoom window. The chat function is only for you to receive information we as hosts and panelists make available for you. All items in the chat will also be sent to you and the follow-up email will send to all attendees, so don't worry about that. With over 300 people registered tonight, we will not likely get to all the questions. But any we do not get, we will share with the City of Woodbury, or the questions we don't get to, we will share those with the City of Woodbury to inform their frequently asked question pages, which we've linked in this chat. So trust assured, we will try to get all questions answered. I would now like to introduce Andrea Hobley, President, League of Women Voters of Woodbury-Cottage Grove area, who will be your moderator this evening, and she will lead us into the forum. Welcome, Andrea.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. So before we get started, I just want to introduce everyone to the League if you're not familiar with us. So the League of Women Voters, Woodbury-Cottage Grove area is a nonpartisan, nonprofit grassroots organization. The League works to encourage informed and active participation of citizens in government. And as a nonpartisan organization, we do not support or oppose any political parties or candidates. One of our most important community services and what we're working to do here tonight is to provide timely public education, especially when urgent issues are affecting our neighbors and raising questions that deserve clear, factual discussion. So we're going to start, as Michelle outlined our process here, we're going to start with a few questions to some of our different community leaders, and then we'll switch to some of the city questions. So first I want to direct questions to Christine Tucci Osorio, the superintendent of School District 622. So my first question to you, Christine, is what are students and staff experiencing with the current ICE presence?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really grateful to be here and have the opportunity to just share some of our experiences on the ground. You know, first and foremost, I want to say that in school districts, with regard to this situation and a lot of other, incidents and situations that come about, our top priorities are safety of students, staff, and families, and student learning. And so, anytime I've had some questions, why would school districts want to step into this political situation that we're in Minnesota? And my response is we absolutely don't want to step into any political situations. However, when things that are happening start to impact our success with students, feeling safe and or learning, it is our job to have some response to that. I also just want to put a little caveat in here. Due to a little mix up with my husband, I'm actually at the airport to pick up some in-laws flying in right after the Zoom. So if you hear some airplanes flying nearby, please disregard. I will
We
say,
appreciate you making the time to join us, so
oh,
that's
of course, of course. This is so important.
Mhm.
One thing I'll tell you is that for people who think this is an issue that's only impacting Minneapolis or St. Paul, it's not. We are in North St. Paul, Maplewood, Oakdale, also the northern part of Woodbury, Landfall, a little slice of Lake Elmo, a little slice of Pine Springs. And I will tell you, it's affecting us every single day. And the ways it's impacting us is simply the fear that's gone through our communities. Normally, I would say that people feel like they can understand laws, rules, regulations. What's happening right now is pretty unpredictable, and it's causing a lot of anxiety. I think the unpredictability of it is causing especially a lot of anxiety. We've had employees who have been followed to work. I had an employee who was driving to work early last week and realized she was being followed. And she's a U.S. citizen. And mind you, anyone who works in our school district has to be authorized to work in the United States or they wouldn't be able to get their jobs. Plus, we have to do background checks on them. But was definitely intimidated. Her car was boxed in by ICE officials who basically kind of held her captive for a little while, wouldn't let her out of her car. Eventually, they left, and she was able to get out of her car. It was very early in the morning, so nobody was there to kind of witness it, but very, very shaken by it. We've had a couple of teen drivers report being also U.S. citizens being, followed by ICE agents and sort of boxed in by ICE agents on roads, um, and feeling very scared to come to work or school. In the case of student school, I think our biggest concern right now is simply school attendance. We have so many, many families who are keeping kids home right now, in part not just because they're worried about being undocumented. Many, many US citizens are keeping their families home because they're afraid of the racial profiling that is happening right now. And, I think a lot of our families with younger children are, willing to send their kids to school, but they're afraid of stepping out to even help walk them to bus stops, that kind of a thing, because it feels scary to not know who's going to show up at your bus stop and detain adults. Um, I would say that families of teens are very concerned because a lot of our teens, especially if they're driving, can look like adults, and so they're very concerned that even though they may be U.S. citizens, if they have brown skin, they're very worried about being pulled over. Um, we've had incidents that have happened very close to our schools. We've had incidents that where family parents have been detained, and one of our biggest fears is what happens when elementary age kids or earlier, younger kids, even pre-K kids, end up going home to an empty house because there's no record of somebody being picked up or detained. And that has happened to us. We've been able to, through eyewitness accounts, been able to get a heads up when an adult is detained by ICE, and we're able to, if we know who they are, we're able to look up their information. This happened to us just last week. We had an she's an adult student of ours learning English, but a neighbor saw her detained by ICE, and we were able to look up her information, realize that we had elementary age children of hers in our school district, and be able to start working a plan to try to help make sure we could reach emergency contacts so that kids can go home. One of the greatest fears of families is that if their child comes home and there's nobody there to greet them, what happens then? And I think that's part of what's really scary in all of this is that in examples of cases where we've heard of people being detained, there are many cases and examples where they don't get a phone call and we're not able to get information. And so we're kind of relying on this on the ground network to help us keep track of which of our students in particular have parents who've been detained or older siblings that might compromise their ability to arrive home safely from school. It's an hour by hour, day by day kind of network of communication, just trying to make sure, to the extent possible, we can help students get to school safely, and of course, be safe when they go home from school. Um, Attendance, which we were on track to have one of the best years ever earlier this fall, has really, really been compromised. Not just for undocumented families, but like I said, even families with legal status here, particularly among Latinos. There's a lot of fear, but of course, among our Somali community, our Hmong community, and many others as well. So um, it's a constant network game to try to keep track of how to keep our kids safe.
Well, my next question was going to be, what are you doing to keep staff and students safe? And I guess that answers part of that question. But
Yes,
are there other things that you're doing in your district to keep staff and students safe?
absolutely. We're trying to help our employees to know that if anybody feels uncomfortable, and wants an escort to their vehicles after work, being especially if you're leaving work after it's gotten dark, if you want some extra support to make sure that someone's got eyes on the parking lot and make sure that you're going to be able to get to your car and head out safely, and reminding everyone that anyone who works in our school district is already legally authorized to work here, so they have documentation and papers to prove that. But that's one area. We've also put a lot of extra staff and some community volunteers in parking lots just to try to offer some additional reassurance that we've got eyes on the situation and we're monitoring what's happening. And so that's been really important as well. Um, and ultimately, our goal is, of course, to have students come to school and be in school every day, which is our first preference and choice. But we also recognize that for some families it's just feeling too unsafe for them to do so, and of course so we're creating online and remote learning opportunities for kids, which, as we all know from the pandemic, is not a good way to learn. So we're making that happen. We would rather not do that, but we also recognize kind of where we're at with things right now.
All right, thank you, Christine. Let's hang out if you can. I know you're at the
Of
airport, but
course, no, I'm
we'll
good.
circle back at the end to
Yep.
everybody. I'm going to move on to Lori Steiger. She's the president and CEO of the Woodbury Area Chamber of Commerce. So, Lori, my first question for you is, how are local businesses being affected by the presence of ICE in our community?
First, I'd like to say thank you to the League of Women Voters. This is really important, and thank you for uniting those of us that are in leadership positions in the community. It's important to try to get some truth out when nobody really knows what the facts are. To get to your question, I think we're all seeing it, and it's funny. Christine, echoing some of what she said, it feels no different than in the pandemic, and those that are the hardest hit at this current time feel like the hospitality industry. Our restaurants, maybe many of you have seen different things in the Cottage Grove, Woodbury, and surrounding area in our restaurants. We have restaurants that are closing their dining areas and only available for takeout. Again, didn't we just go through this? They're changing their hours of operation. They're changing their limited menus. Part of that is because there's not enough staff, because there are people who aren't feeling safe coming to work. So the restaurants are huge and will be impactful to our community. The hotel industry, some are operating at 50%. Um, with the Winter Carnival coming up, we were informed that there's 2 hotels in downtown St. Paul that are closed. They were huge headquarter hotels that had full occupancy and full events. So if you can imagine the economic impact to the city of St. Paul as a result of closing those hotels, and now you've displaced an entire carnival. But also there's the service industry. Think about things like cleaners, roofers, although you wouldn't think about that right now, but think about roofing, exterior, interior design and contracting. A lot of our business owners who have those companies are receiving calls of concern from homeowners saying, what do we do? Whether a person is legal or illegal, they wouldn't know that. They're trusting a company. So what happens if they have this person in or on their property? What happens then? So there's again a lot of uncertainty. And again, I think that the majority of us are seeing where those pain points are. So beyond the service industry, again, it goes back to hospitality.
And then how is the chamber navigating the needs of businesses along the side of keeping, employees and patrons safer? How are businesses navigating this, and how is the chamber working with this?
Yeah, that's such a great question, and we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what's going to unfold each day. I would love to say that we have this incredible plan rolled out to keep everyone safe and to keep our businesses thriving. We don't. What we are doing is trying to lead with heart, trying to lead with compassion, and trying to make sure that all of our business owners can feel heard and let us know where we can support them. So, for instance, when we know of restaurants with different hours or restaurants that have employee funds or employee GoFundMe accounts for those that can't work right now, we want to make sure that we are the conduit to share communication, to help the public understand who is and who isn't closed, and who is open. And we're asking the public whenever it's possible. And these are odd times, and you have to choose your dollars and your spending carefully. But if you can support local business, please do. Show up, show your support. The other thing I would say is I have the opportunity to meet on a quarterly basis with Chief Posel. We were in one of our restaurant operations. I want to say this was 8 or 9 months ago. And I know the owner quite well, and I was chatting with her. And when Jason showed up in uniform, she immediately came over and said that this was already affecting their businesses. As a result of that, the chamber did a Q&A and a forum. We had one of our member attorneys come and present, and when I informed the city and Jason's team that this was happening, I said, whether they're a member or not, if you're hearing of businesses that want to that are affected by ICE, here's their legal rights and obligations and opportunities. The first thing Jason said to me is, do you want me there? Because we can help you from the standpoint of what is the police doing and what is the police responsibility and what is not. So we have a really strong relationship with the police department. These people are caring and compassionate individuals that this community is really something special. And if you've ever lived elsewhere, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm just grateful to be in a place where we can try to do what we can. I wish I had more solutions, but we're just kind of taking it day by day and trying to meet our members and our businesses where they are.
Thanks, Lori. I'm going to go on down to Christie. Denson is the chair of the Woodbury Community Foundation. And my first question for you is, how are community nonprofits and people they serve being affected by current ICE activity?
Thank you. And thanks again for inviting us. This is an important opportunity to speak about the impact on the nonprofit community. The Woodbury Community Foundation has been in the community 20 years, and our mission is to connect people and organizations to causes that matter. And we connect a lot with our nonprofits in the community because we run a nonprofit roundtable where we convene about 30 nonprofits 3 times a year. We also have a program called the Woodbury Racial Equity Collaborative that brings together leaders to look at issues of racial equity. And so what we're hearing from our nonprofit community has already been stated is really the fear that's happening. Our programs that are serving immigrant residents are seeing, regardless of their status, they're not coming forward for services, services like basic needs, food, educational support, because they're afraid. And that fear is not unfounded. We know of ICE operations that are happening on the grounds of our nonprofits in our local community. And so we know of multiple incidents where volunteers have been detained by ICE going to the nonprofit to volunteer. And so there's an impact not only on the client side seeking services from nonprofits, but also on the side of volunteers who are important to make an organization run, and also the staff. And that's in a time to disrupt services when we were already stressed. Nonprofit community, particularly around food insecurity, was already seeing a surge with um, SNAP benefits being cut from the federal government. We were already seeing stress around funding and federal funding being cut. So right now, what I'm hearing as well is that nonprofits are having to pivot and even divert already stressed resources to increase staff presence. That was mentioned about people feeling comfortable. So increasing staff presence, doing additional trainings for staff about how to keep their clients and communities safe that they're dealing with. A lot of nonprofits may have had this training already, but some haven't. And I can speak. I'm a volunteer. This is a volunteer role for me, and so this is not something that, as a volunteer, I'm professionally equipped to know the right thing to do. And so it's been a learning to, you know how to stay safe and serve our communities in the way that we want to. Um, so again, it's that diverting that time, that funding, redesigning programs, addressing safety concerns. Um, and then in some cases, programming isn't happening. So we kind of heard that from the school district that some nonprofits are able to shift to virtual programming, but not all are. And so in that sense, important interventions and services are not happening right now in some cases.
And what is Woodbury Community Foundation doing to help support and bring our community together?
Yeah, so as a community foundation, our job really is in that connecting and networking space. We're trying to, we're trying to stand in the gap for nonprofits right now. There are nonprofits that are fearful of even coming forward to share what they're experiencing for fear that they will be targeted. And so because we don't do direct service in that way, we can kind of stand in the gap right now and represent those nonprofits. We're also, we've compiled a resource list of needs that we know are happening with some of our nonprofits, of ways that volunteers can either, because of the volunteer shortage from volunteers, particularly volunteers of color, do not feel comfortable coming to do their volunteer shift because of some incidents that have occurred. There are some volunteer needs right now, so we're looking for encouraging our we have a group called the Woodbury Champions. That's our sort of volunteer hub that we just have a listserv of those folks that are willing to raise their hand and say, if there's a community need and it works in my life, I will come. So for people can sign up to be a part of that group, and as we hear things from our partners, we can share those resources. And then obviously funding, that is a huge piece right now. So the Woodbury Community Foundation has a couple of funds that are more around the long-term support of health and human services, and also our programs. We have an anti-racism fund that supports work around racial equity, and that's going to be, as it's been already mentioned, the racial profiling and the impact that's happening to our residents is something that we're going to need to continue to monitor and pay attention to, and try to have community conversations and programming so that our residents feel safe. And so you can support that. And then there's a list of other programs that we give grants to that we know are great nonprofits that you can trust, that are providing services, right here in Woodbury and Cottage Grove and Oakdale and St. Paul.
Thanks, Christy. So now we're going to turn our questions to our next three panelists. We have from the cities of Woodbury and Cottage Grove. So we have Jeffrey Dahl he's the Woodbury City Administrator, Chief Peter Koerner, who's the Cottage Grove Public Safety Director and Police Chief, and Chief Jason Posel, who is the Woodbury Public Safety Director and Police Chief. So welcome and thank you to the three of you. So just an overview for you and as well as the audience, we basically have 4 chunks of questions. So, and we're going to divide that out into about the next 50 minutes or so. So the first chunk is relating to the potential for the ICE detention facility. The second chunk is the city operations and agreements. And then the third is public safety questions, especially frequently asked questions from the community. So for people who are here for that, that's going to be coming up. And then community support and how we're supporting the community. So I am going to just direct these. I've kind of got it, so we're directing it at one of you to answer the question to begin with. But I really am. We're fine with kind of popcorn answers here. If those, anyone else wants to join in. Um, so our first section, as I mentioned, questions basically about facilities or a detention facility. We do know that at this point, the facility that was rumored to be under consideration for being a detention facility, that room has been deemed to be a rumor. So it's not in play at this moment, but it doesn't mean that um, the city wouldn't still be considered for a detention facility. So that being said, we have some questions about that. So Jeff, um, sort of briefly, what laws apply to a scenario where people are residing or detained in a building, basically? So, for example, like what city ordinances or other rules that our local government is involved with monitoring and enforcing apply insofar as like health, safety, and humane conditions. And then I also like the zoning and public health rules. Not a small question, but feel free to kind of give us a brief overview if you can.
Sure. Thank you, Andrea. And it's, again, thank you to the League of Women Voters for holding this important discussion. It's a pleasure to be here. And while I'd rather be talking about something more positive, I do want to just acknowledge that I'm joined by great community members, leaders that were able to have an impact in our beloved community. So all this sucks, but at the end of the day, we can make a difference. So I appreciate everybody on this panel and everybody that's listening to. To get to your question, Andrea, we've been grappling with this since essentially Christmas Eve when we first heard of the report. So not ideal timing. And I just want to just clarify something. It was rumored, through a newspaper article on Christmas Eve that we got this information. But about a week ago, we realized and got information that no, this is serious. We know that the federal government is doing due diligence on a detention center, specifically in Woodbury. This goes to the fact that everything is moving so quickly in real time, really, and that makes it hard to be completely caught up and notifying the public, on a minute by minute basis. But since the past basically 8 days, we went from a 9 on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of our concern about a detention center coming to our city, to a 3 last week when we were notified verbally by the property owner that they were no longer pursuing or interested in making any kind of deal with the federal government for the facility in Woodbury. 3 is good, but it's still not making us sleep great at night. Happy to inform everybody here that today we got written communication both from the federal government and the property owner that Woodbury is no longer an option and that they're kind of going back to the drawing board or exploring other options right now. So we've got we feel the most secure in that direction as we can. But kind of getting to the second part of that question, Andrea, it doesn't mean that the federal government, if they really pursue it, couldn't go anywhere they want to. Federal government has what we call as a federal supremacy law, where they basically can dismiss local regulations or even state regulations in terms of zoning, public health, and all of the things you need to do to operate a business or a facility. Now, if you're working for the federal government, you're still going to want to go to a place where, it's not going to be held up in court, or, maybe you have somebody that's really wants you there. So I think there's a calculated risk by the federal government. And at the end of the day, we feel really good. And it's not just leaving ICE and all that aside. It's a jail. And nowhere in our code or our comp plan or any of our city documents do we nowhere do those documents accommodate, plan for, or even desire that type of use. So we're happy with where we're at. We know that no matter what, if the federal government really wants something, they can probably go into any city and any land, but we're about as well positioned as we can be at this point in time.
Well, you already kind of alluded to it, but my follow-up question to that is if something were to happen, what is our recourse? Um, you know, uh, how could we respond? You mentioned, lawsuits or things like that. I'll let you answer.
Yeah, it's a good question, and one that we talked about for quite some time, and it's really difficult to respond because we just don't have any details, and we never got any details from the federal government. We learned from it through a notification process that they had to inform our tribal communities and the state. So it's hard to say, but it's certainly getting legal advice. At the end of the day, in order to operate a facility, you need water, you need sewer, and a lot of that all cuts through city land, city right away. So no matter what, there's going to be some collaboration. That's probably a bad word in this case to use, but the two government entities and the county too need to talk to each other. So to what degree, how strong would that leverage be? I don't know, but it's not like just because we have zoning laws on the books and the county's got public health laws on the books that they would have to agree or conform to those, unfortunately.
And this is just kind of a follow-up question that I'm getting in here too is, um, I know we're talking kind of about rules that apply and zoning and things like that, but as far as actually acquiring the building can the federal government use eminent domain to acquire a building? Or I guess it sounds like the situation that was contemplated so far was a rental or a lease agreement, but I'm assuming, could the federal government use eminent domain to acquire a location?
Yes, I do believe they can. Yep.
One other follow-up question. I'm kind of keeping an eye on the Q&A, but when anything, I know people are asking a lot of questions, so I'm just going to ask ones that I see that happen to be kind of good follow-up at the moment. If apparently there are other cities that have banned the federal government from building for 5 years or something like that, and I'm assuming the answer to that is, that wouldn't really matter either. But if the city of Woodbury, for example, took some kind of action to ban such a facility for a period of years, would that be helpful?
Um, you know, I think our council and our staff have done a good job at really working on things that really have an impact. And I think banning would be, from an optic perspective, would tell the community that we don't support this for reasons X, Y, and Z. But legally, I don't think that would do anything. So it really depends if the community needs to hear that, and you can see a tangible value in that, and that would be a policy decision that the council would make.
And then my last question in this section is, how will Woodbury continue to monitor and inform residents about potential ICE detention facilities in our community? We've already kind of got an answer there, but how, are you keeping an eye on it going forward, and how will you communicate that to us?
Yeah. One quick point though, I'll get to that in a second, but one other thing I wanted to mention is the best way I think that we can deflect or make sure that that particular site isn't used or isn't attractive to the federal government is to get it filled. So we're working with the property owner to ensure that, if there's any barriers that we can remove to make sure that it's filled as quickly as possible. I think that's our best kind of defense there. But in terms of moving forward, as I mentioned before, we're trying to stay ahead of this as much as we can. We needed several days over the holidays just to try to figure out, what we're even responding to. So it was a very unique and difficult situation to try to let the public know what we're hearing, but also not having the confidence because we've never heard it from a reliable source of what's going on. So we know a lot more now, and this is also tied in with the ICE activity and the fear and the anxiety and the trauma that our communities are facing right now. So that complicates matters. But no matter what, we're going to use all of our channels to make sure that we're transparent, and as quick as we can get out information. So on our website, we have FAQs regarding ICE and specifically our public safety team's role. We have our In Touch program where people can sign up and get the latest news, whether it's a statement from the mayor or, a public emergency of some sort. Community members can get information that way, social media, of course, newsletters, all those tools. We try to divide and conquer, and I'll say we've got the best community relations / communication staff in the metro. So I'm really confident that if the community needs to hear something, you're going to get as quickly and as most professional and clear as possible.
Thanks. And I also want to comment, we're getting a lot of really good questions. So if we're not answering a question live, I want people to know we are collecting all of the questions. And I know that we're in communication with the city about adding those to the FAQ page as well. I want to move on to sort of city operation, city agreement. So I am addressing these to Jeff because you're a city administrator, but to the extent that, we're Woodbury, I'm going to, Chief Koerner, if you want to jump in on any of these to answer from a perspective of Cottage Grove, we'd like to hear that as well. So, the first question is, Jeff, does Woodbury Public Safety have any formal agreements with, and I guess, I'm sorry, of course, Chief Posel could jump in here as well too, but does Woodbury or Cottage Grove have any formal agreements with ICE or DHS? For example, a 287G agreement, those are the agreements that my understanding is they authorize local law enforcement officers to act as an extension of ICE. I hope I'm getting that right. Or non-disclosure agreements.
I'll just mention real quick. I think Chief Posel would be the best
Okay.
person to answer those on behalf of the city of Woodbury. But I've been around for 6 months, and I've been super impressed with our public safety teams, as was just mentioned. So Jason's probably thinking, "Shut up, Jeff. Shut up, Jeff. I got this." And so I'm gonna let Jason say or respond to that one.
As I started asking the question, I thought I really should have just directed that at you, Chief Posel. So thank you.
No, I wasn't thinking that, Jeff, but
Come on.
Just to start off, thank you, Andrea, for having us here, and thank you to the League of Women Voters. Again, this is an important conversation. I know we got a lot of questions, so we're gonna jump right in. No, we do not. We do not have any formal agreements related to the 287G or the non-disclosure agreements with ICE.
As a follow-up to that, would either of the cities consider signing any formal agreements like that?
Yeah, I would say we're busy serving our community, enforcing local ordinances and state laws. So there's been no discussion of any type of agreement like that from the city of Woodbury.
Okay. Chief Koerner, do you have anything to add?
I'll actually first, I'll echo what Jason and Jeff had said too about just, thank you for having us here. And as Jason just said, it's very important conversation, but yeah, just to echo what they said, Cottage Grove has absolutely no interest in any of the 287 or entering any kind of agreements. And our focus is on local kind of things, not anything ICE related. So.
Great. Thank you. Again, I've got all of these directed at Jeff, but if you want to pass these off to anyone, please do. So what contracts do Cottage Grove and Woodbury have regarding training ICE officers at the Hero Center?
I can take that one to start with.
Sure.
Obviously, I just want to be clear that, the Hero Training Center, it's a joint facility with Cottage Grove and Woodbury. We have a financial operations committee that manages it, so it's not necessarily Cottage Grove or Woodbury, but DHS, they are able to train at the Hero Center, but I really want to be clear on that there's about 60 other federal, state, county, and city agencies that train there. So DHS has been training there for about 5 years. And just to kind of clear any misconceptions, our department does not train with them. Woodbury does not train with them. They're renting a facility. And just when we've worked with our, through the last 6 months when this issue has kind of come up, Cottage Grove and Woodbury, our Hero Center committee, we can't discriminate against any agency. And so I think that's one of the main points on there. But again, 60 different agencies we have that are are come train there on a regular basis, and then more. So.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do our local agencies give any support to ICE or DHS in our area?
To speak for Cottage Grove, no, we don't. We have pretty much zero communication. It's usually we hear about things after it's happened, and it's usually through social media and or just residents will ask us questions about it. So, but we aren't working with them at all.
Yeah, and I would just add on that front, in my nearly 30 years of working for the City of Woodbury, I've never been involved in an operation with immigration enforcement. We don't work with them. We, at the city, Cottage Grove and Woodbury, we do not ask for immigration status and interactions. We do not enforce immigration laws. We really want people to feel comfortable calling 911 if there's an emergency, if they need help. And, we're going to continue looking for ways to continue to develop trust and relationship in our communities. And, we have not been contacted by ICE for any type of assistance that they've requested from us. And so that's where we're at as a city.
This is just a follow-up question I'm noticing. Is there a way to know when DHS is going to train at the Hero Center so that they can avoid it? I mean, I know a lot of people are uncomfortable or scared. And is there a way to know when they're training there?
Actually, we don't make the training schedules public. When they schedule it, we don't.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So next question is, has the workload of our local agencies increased as a result of the presence of ICE in our area?
Well, I can just speak for, I think you're referring to public safety teams, but I can just tell you from an administration perspective, it has. We've prioritized this issue, both increased ICE activity, and communications of it, and the detention center. We've even started an EOC about it just because there's so many things coming at us so quickly, and we wanted to make sure it's a priority and that we're allocating the right amount of resources to respond effectively. So other things have been pushed to the wayside to prioritize for this.
I will say this question is intended to be broader than just public
okay.
safety, but also public safety I know is impacted as well. So is there anything else you'd want to add, given that it is a broader question, or if that covers it, that's all right too.
Just to reiterate, this has been our #1 priority, and it's meant that other, more Woodbury centric or, more planned initiatives have had to take a back seat as a result.
Chief Koerner, do you want to answer that from your perspective?
Yeah, I can. As far as public safety, like call volume, no, it has not increased. Fortunately, in Washington County, I think we've been pretty lucky. When Jason and I both participate in a lot of different associations and have conversations with chiefs throughout the metro and I'd say throughout the state. So certain jurisdictions are seeing quite a bit more calls. I know if you talk to the dispatch centers or some of the call centers, they'll say they've had increase in calls. But as Jeff said, I think just citywide or city staff, there's been a lot more time on this. For the police department, we have our community impact team. They've been quite a bit more active, and just my daily routine has become a lot more meetings, a lot more communicating, conversations with different organizations. And I know you have further questions on how we're connecting. I can answer it there, but so calls for service, not necessarily up, but yeah, that it's definitely had an impact on city services. What we've had, as Jeff said, really that what we've had to prioritize too. This has been our focus now for the last month or so.
And everything that gets sent out publicly, we know because this is a political issue that it's going to get scrutinized, significantly. So we don't take that lightly. Whether it's just making sure that it's unbiased, it sticks to the facts, but also know that no matter what we send out, it's going to get criticized and people might take it one way. So just like getting staff ready to handle the response to whatever we send out, or giving the council a heads up, like, by the way, we got to send out this, you're going to hear from people. It's unfortunate that that's where we're at as a society, but we're going to still do our jobs and try to mitigate, it making it more of an issue or a mess than it needs to be.
Yeah, I would just say we're spending a tremendous amount of time and energy, as is everyone, listening to this in terms of trying to figure out what's going on. And there hasn't been much to any communication coming to us from ICE in terms of what their focus areas have been, what their tactics are, and it has us, connecting regularly with our local, state, representatives, trying to get information. It's us connecting as a leadership group with the agencies here in Washington County. And as Jeff mentioned, we have a EOC, Emergency Operations Center, that we've stood up that brings in participants from departments across the city to connect several times a week to have conversations about what is going on. Candidly, we're watching the news and getting some of our reports from what's happening on the news and reacting to that in real time. And that uncertainty of what's going on is having us at higher levels of preparedness and planning, and as the situation continues to evolve.
As a follow-up question to that, I think had been asked if we know what the financial impact is, and maybe we don't know yet, but I just wanted to ask if we have any idea what the financial impact is on those services.
I think it would be hard to quantify that at this point in time, but I wouldn't even want to guess. But maybe that's something, as hopefully we get through this, we'll be able to do.
Go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt. I'll just say there's a financial impact in schools that I'd be happy to share as well.
Yeah, Christine, I'm seeing there's just so many good questions in here
Yeah.
too that we might need to jump around to. I think if
No
we
worries.
end maybe as sort of an ad hoc little, if we can end a little bit, we're running actually ahead of schedule, so maybe we'll try to work in some of this Q&A at the end, and Christina, you could bring that up then.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Okay, thanks. I just muted myself instead of asking the next question. So one of the other questions we had, I'll direct this one at Jeff, is does the city have any kind of a procedure, like declaring like a city emergency, for example, that would allow additional city resources to protect and serve the community?
Yeah, we do. Although, there's a certain amount of leeway I have just as a part of approving expenditures as a part of operations. So I think, thus far, everything that we've had to do has fallen under that. But the city can declare a state of emergency. The mayor can do that. And then in a couple of days after, the council has to affirm that if there's consensus. But ultimately, that allows certain privileges and rights for me to spend a dollar, up to a certain dollar amount. And then also, like back, let's say during the civil unrest, a lot of cities enacted state of emergency to have curfews at certain times to keep people off the streets. So yeah, that would be the primary process to make exception based on this crisis that we're dealing with right now.
All right, I'm going to move us on to the next set of questions, and these are more or less more in the public safety questions, and they're really the most common things that people are asking. And I suspect if I could sit down and go through all the Q&A, I think a lot of them are that type of question, but really like what people want to know about how they can interact or not interact in different ways. So I'm just going to go right through these, and I suspect as we go, some of them will be answered by other questions. So I'll try to get through these. So the first one, I'm going to direct to Chief Posel first. So we know that if an ICE officer has a properly signed judicial warrant, that's, you know, our that gets honored, or if any law enforcement officer has a properly signed judicial warrant, that's what's followed. So let's say in the absence of such a warrant, what can an ICE agent demand from people? For example, can they demand we open our doors or step out of our cars?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's candidly, it's a little surreal to be having this conversation about, on these topics. I had a conversation with a young person here this week asking what identification they needed to carry with them. And, just to be having conversations about what documentation we need to carry around with us is just kind of it's a little bit of a surreal moment. It's difficult to provide kind of clear, information on some of these pieces because it's not our agency. The questions aren't, how would Woodbury or Cottage Grove handle these situations? So it puts us, in a situation where we're, thinking towards, this other agency and what kind of our best advice would be. And really kind of putting law enforcement in a difficult dilemma overall, your local law enforcement. So, it's a different system, the federal level, and they operate under different policies and procedures, but we are all bound by the Constitution. And, if anytime somebody is asking a question, can I come inside your house? Can you step out of your car? The question that we should be asking is, do I have to? Is this a command or is this a request? And if it's a request, we have the right to say no. So, that would be, kind of, I think my best guidance moving forward on this with people that have questions is seeking clarification in those interactions of whether this is a command or whether this is a request. And if it's a request and you clarify that, you have the right to say no to stepping out of the car or to letting somebody into your house.
Chief Koerner, do you have anything to add?
Actually, I think Jason took a very complex question and stated it, pretty well. So that's exactly it, is to ask those questions. There's a lot of guidance out. Fortunately, me and Jason, we have awesome legal teams, whether it's the county attorney's office or our city attorneys that we ask these questions to. But that's when do you have to cooperate, having the warrant and stuff. So I think that's good if it's ask that question. Do I have to? Otherwise, show me that warrant before you're going to try and enter the home or something. So, good response, Jason.
Yeah. I know that we were trying to avoid asking for like legal opinions from you guys too. So I think some of the resources that we've pulled, we wanted to share as well with the attendees that are in the chat. And for people who are not, we're going to have those available other places as well. So, so the next set of questions, or to keep going with these, I'll direct this one at Chief Koerner. I'm just going to alternate here. What can I do if ICE hauls someone out at a restaurant or a store
Sure.
that I'm in?
All right. The one thing I kind of wanted to bring up initially too is the Control Police Department, Woodbury Police Department. We enforce state and local laws. We don't enforce any federal immigration laws. A lot of these different meetings that Jason and I have been attending on kind of what ifs or things like that, but like local businesses, I would tell a person if they see some kind of activity, you can be a good witness. You can help document what you see. There's really not a distance in Minnesota. People ask like, how close can I get to an ICE operation? Can I videotape them? Those are all excellent questions. I just always tell people like, stay safe. Don't get in the middle of one of these operations. Just like there's a lot of confusion right now where people will come up when Cottage Grove, we're still investigating crimes in Cottage Grove. They're not related to ICE. I just don't want to see people get hurt. We've had them come up and start, yelling at us like, "Get out of here, ICE!" And we're like, "Oh, we're the Cottage Grove Police Department. We're handling this case." And so it's just more of a safety thing. But just I know it just, it really hurts to see the, people getting dragged out of a business or something. So I would say be a good witness. You can report back later, tell the business, because when they're trying to find where a person was detained or how long, all this information is really good. So I'm never going to say don't videotape, don't do this, don't do that, but just stay out of harm's way, I think. So.
In context of what we've already been talking about, I think I'm just going to ask this question. You can think about it, and then I'm going to tweak it a little bit. But Chief Posel, question I have is, what's the current role of Woodbury Public Safety in an ICE raid? For example, if in a church or a business or a school. I suspect that maybe you don't have a role, and that's, but I guess I'm curious what your take is on that question from a community member.
Yeah, we don't have a role in ICE operations. I mentioned earlier, there is no communication that's coming to us of any activity that's happening in the city. So, if there was some type of activity in the city, our role in it, if we were called upon, would be to de-escalate the situation as best we could. Again, we do not enforce immigration laws. That's not our role. So our role there effectively would be to make sure that the community is safe, to make sure that we are doing what we can to de-escalate those situations. We put a tremendous amount of effort and energy into our training the training that we do for de-escalation, for crisis intervention training. All of our officers go through that training. That's really our role in the community, is to de-escalate incidents that we're called upon to interact with. So if we were called upon, that would be our role.
And I would just add there from the chief that administratively our role as this thing evolves is to inform, be transparent with community members, businesses, property owners, so they know what their rights are to keep them safe. Ultimately, that's what we're charged to do, is to keep our community members, regardless of where they came from or who they are, safe.
Yeah, I think where this question was going to is, if there was an ICE raid and for some reason you were called, as well as what your role would be. I know you answered de-escalation, but I guess how would you see kind of the role of where you're coming in and there's, say, ICE agents and community members?
Well, I think, connecting with those that are on scene, trying to gain clarity of, why this is happening, what information community members have, observers. I'm talking with witnesses. We'd be there to document it as well. We have our body worn cameras activated, so documenting the situation. Again, connecting with those involved, working to de-escalate if appropriate, and intervening if appropriate as well. So that's our role in there is not from an assistance standpoint to ICE, but we would be there to effectively to de-escalate and to connect and see where we can be of assistance.
Two last questions in this section. So, Chief Koerner, how can you assist people who get injured or assaulted when ICE agents are present?
Oh, yeah. Obviously, Cottage Grove, we have a EMS service, so we could definitely, and we provide our medics, our ambulance would show up. Depend on the extent of any kind of injuries, but as Jason said, as the police, we have body cameras, we have squad cameras. We're going to be the ones that can, help document that incident as well. So we would, do up a report on it and document everything that we had observed.
And this is a really similar question I'm going to ask to Director Posel or Chief Posel. Can ICE agents be arrested for damaging property, for example, kicking in doors or smashing car windows?
Yeah, so you can call 911 if that's an issue. Please contact us if you have an encounter like that. We're there to help document the situation, to work with those impacted. We do have an outlet to connect with the federal leadership if there's inappropriate or illegal activity. So we have our Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association was in contact with immigration enforcement looking for a connection. So if there was something that was inappropriate or was illegal, we would look to follow up on it through those channels. And really, we're there to assist the community. As we go, if there was an encounter where somebody had their door broken in, we do have a community support fund that provides monies to individuals to help support them if they're in need of an emergency situation. A situation like this would certainly fall within that. So, looking to how we can best support them and their family, also connecting them with information about what may have happened either on scene or with a family member who maybe has been detained. We do have some connections with our representatives who have contact numbers who can work with the Department of State to get more updated information that is available on the website. So I would say the first thing to do in this situation would be call 911, connect with your local department, whether it would be Woodbury or Cottage Grove, and officers can come on scene and try to assist you however we're going to be able to.
And then the last question here is, when and how can Woodbury or Cottage Grove public safety officers step in to protect residents when ICE agents are present? I suspect this is similar to the question we asked earlier about if you were called during an incident, but I wanted to ask that directly as well. So the question, I should be clear, when and how or if can public safety officers step in and protect residents against if there are ICE agents present?
Yeah, I can go ahead, Pete.
No, that's a very difficult question. I'm just looking and through my mind, I'm thinking of the hundreds of different scenarios that could be going on. Obviously, we don't know what led to the initial encounter. If we pull up on a traffic stop and we see someone on the ground getting handcuffed, I don't know what led to that. Obviously, we would do an independent investigation. It's probably not an immediate just us jumping into it and trying to make arrests or things like that, but we would, definitely start an investigation into it with what knowledge we have. We wouldn't we wouldn't allow what we consider to be excessive force occurring right, in front of us. So we would intercede, and I think we've used the word a lot, like de-escalate. So in with the agents, just like if we pulled up onto a domestic situation, we would try to de-escalate, and then again, we have our point of contacts where we could make the report as well with the ICE leadership that is in Minnesota. So we would definitely do that. But yeah, we would intercede. I'm not going to watch someone abuse their powers and make some kind of terrible unlawful arrest with excessive force either. So,
Chief Posel, do you have any follow-up for that for Woodbury?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would echo what Chief Koerner is saying, is that in terms of, if there was a need for immediate, intervention, if there was some type of excessive force that was being used, that would be our role. So we would not, kind of stand by as watching something like that. But it really, not having any of this information on the front end and the lack of communication about these activities, it really puts officers responding in a difficult position as they come on scene and try to quickly ascertain, what's going on and what led to this and who all is involved. We got plainclothes people that are potentially on scene as well. So, not having any prior knowledge to their involvement, that becomes really problematic. Just say historically, the way that law enforcement agencies operate is if you're going to another jurisdiction to conduct any activity, you're advising the local agency of that. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But for the scenario I kind of just laid out in terms of officers that are arriving on scene without any prior knowledge about what led to this or who's all involved, it really puts them in a difficult position, especially in potentially a dynamic situation where decisions are made and you're trying to quickly kind of hash out here a dynamic situation that you didn't have any prior knowledge about. So, but our role would be that to intervene if needed, and but to collect information, to write a report, to capture information with our body-worn cameras and our squad cameras, and to connect with community, both witnesses and those involved, to get information along with talking with all of the parties that were on scene. I think you're on mute.
Question I've seen several times in the Q&A, so I'm just going to ask you. I don't think we need a long answer, but have there been, how many or any types of interactions like these have we had in our cities?
I can say on Cottage Grove, I'm not aware of any interactions where we've had any kind of force issues. A majority of the ICE activity that we have encountered, it's generally people have called in suspicious vehicles, sitting on the street, and then our officers go to investigate like we would anything. And then, we find out that they do have that they have like a target that they're watching or trying to apprehend. But from there, they don't ask us to, assist any further. It's like, hey, we're here, and that's about it. So again, there's a lot of lack of communication. There's not much coming to us.
Yeah, and I would just say in Woodbury, we're getting these calls after the fact. So, for example, we had an abandoned car, and we arrived on scene, and what's going on? Turns out there was a nice operation. Somebody was detained. They left the car behind. It was blocking as well, so it was blocking the intersection area. So, trying to figure out, kind of unravel this in terms of what led to this, who does the car belong to, why was it left here, who was in the vehicle, who can we contact to come pick the vehicle up. As we learn more information, we want to work with the community. We don't want to adversely affect the family any more than they already have been. So, looking to get the vehicle picked up from the scene. So it's just an example of kind of how after the fact we're kind of coming on scene, trying to work through a situation that's already taken place.
I'm going to move us into our last set of questions. Now, these are, kind of pertain to how or if in what ways you're offering support to community, especially community protesters exercising their First Amendment rights, for example, student walkouts, marchers, or observers. I'm going to direct this first question at Chief Posel. Under what circumstances would public safety officers tell people not to blow whistles, not to follow ICE vehicles, or not to take photos or videos of ICE proceedings?
Yeah, so I would just start by saying, we're here to protect and honor people's First Amendment rights. We really have a soft approach in terms of with folks that are exercising their First Amendment rights. We want to be reasonable. We want to be as flexible as possible. What we generally try to do is connect with the group when we arrive on scene, talk about where, private property versus public property, talk about the ordinances that are in place. We, again, try to be flexible. We hire people of high character and people who are flexible in nature. So, we have a great staff, and we rely on them to go and kind of navigate these difficult situations. I mean, there's some competing pieces to this with city ordinances and state statutes as well, in terms of, that they're, businesses that are impacted and other individuals that can be impacted as well. So, we try to balance those out, but, our focus really is working with those individuals and those groups to make sure that they can exercise their First Amendment rights, while also understanding the impact of that and coming up with a reasonable approach about how they can do that while still being in compliant with city ordinances and state laws. And a couple of examples of this is we had a council meeting last Wednesday that was very well attended. We had additional staff that was on scene, making sure that people's First Amendment rights to not only to attend, but also then to bring signs and to not to protect them against any maybe counter protesters who could have potentially shown up. We also had a march that was done here last Saturday, in which several hundred members attended. We brought in additional staff to make sure that the roadways were going to be as safe as possible, that those crossings could be conducted as safely as possible, and to make sure that we were supporting people's First Amendment right to not only to gather, but to protest. And we're supportive of that, and really look to connect with people early. If an individual or group does have something planned, we're happy to work with them on the front end to have good communication about what the plan is, and see what we can do to support them as well.
Chief Koerner, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think I would just echo that front line of communication is really appreciated. You had mentioned the students when they do the walkout. Hats off to Woodbury High School, East Ridge, and Park High School. All three of those schools, the student leadership worked with the school administration. They worked with our school resource officers. They wanted to make sure that their message was heard, yet they were safe. And, so we didn't want them running across the road and whatever, so we explained like, hey, here's what the right of way, here's where you can go. Don't block traffic. So just having those open communications. We don't see a lot of protests or marches or anything, but when the groups do reach out to us, we can help try to make sure they're safe, and then we're aware of them. And so yeah, there's that front line of communication, really, that first line coming in and letting us know, that helps.
I know there have been a lot of questions about places that ICE is staying. I think there's, whistles and things come into that. I don't know if you have any comments about that. I'll direct that at Chief Posel.
Yeah, again, I would just, we're here to support people's First Amendment rights. I think what you're referencing is the hotels specifically, with people outside the hotels. Again, we were having conversations as a leadership group about how we best support people to exercise their First Amendment rights, while also weighing in the business owner and other guests that are staying at the hotel. Those actions don't just impact the intended people who you're trying to impact, it impacts now the business and the other people that are staying at the hotel. So that's the balance that we try to achieve. And we understand that, the protesters, I would just say to the groups who have come out, we are not working with ICE. We are not there to support ICE or ICE operations. But from a public safety standpoint, we do also have to balance out, again, the property owner, the business, and the other businesses around that location, as well as the other people that may be staying inside of that hotel as well.
I'm going to direct the next question at Chief Koerner. What emphasis do you put on de-escalation techniques?
Great question. With de-escalation, I mean, that's kind of with Cottage Grove. I think that's been with our training. We do an additional 10 hours of training that's allocated just to de-escalation training. It comes up at the Hero Center. We have the simulator room. So every other month we do de-escalation training. It's a regular topic and roll call discussions. If you're not familiar with CIT, crisis intervention training, that's generally more geared towards focus on mental health or situations. But all of our officers in the department go through that 40-hour use of or that de-escalation training, and just our use of force review team. We look at every situation, and less than 1% of our calls ever it's even less than that there's ever even forced use. So, but we always look at, could there have been de-escalation? Did you need to escalate to the pepper spray or something like that? So I'm extremely proud of our training with de-escalation, and I think that's kind of a Washington County, that's a county standard with how much training we do in that area.
Yeah, I would just add, we really are in the de-escalation business. Local policing, we spend a lot of time, and Chief Koerner has mentioned several of those, including reality-based training scenarios, with the video simulators as well. I would start back though at the hiring piece, and really, the practices, the hiring practices that we have, identifying people who share in our mission, who understand our mission, who are here to fulfill our mission, which is to serve all people with compassion and courage, people that have high character, who understand that these aren't black and white jobs, that we live in the gray, and that we meet people at their worst sometimes, and we work to make their situations better. And so the hiring piece of this is super important on the very front end. And I know that that's from a selection process, and even through the scenarios that we have individuals go through the initial process, the background, the psychological, all the different pieces that go into it to make sure that we're having the best and brightest folks who are answering these calls and responding to calls for service. And I'm extremely proud of our officers. I know Chief Koerner is extremely proud of his staff as well, and a lot of energy and effort from the city goes into making sure that we have the best and brightest that are answering these calls for service and supporting our community.
So our last question in this section is, are any of the Woodbury or Cottage Grove public safety officers working for ICE when they're off duty? I'll let Chief Posel answer that first.
So per policy, I approve all of our off-duty requests, and I've never, so if anyone wanted to do an off-duty employment, they have to submit a form, which I review. I have never received a request from any of our staff who were interested in enforcing immigration enforcement or interested in working with ICE. So no, we do not have any.
Yep, for Cottage, easy. Yeah, thank you for an easy question there. But yeah, we're the same as Woodbury, where they have to request any kind of off duty or when they're not acting as a police officer in Cottage Grove, and we don't have it. I've never had the request even. So
okay. And kind of our wrap up question for this whole section is just to go back and forth. I'll address this to Chief Koerner first. What planning are you doing, what planning are you doing with whom to address threats to public safety from ICE to ensure that all residents continue to feel safe accessing local businesses, schools, and public spaces?
sure. Well, I'll start by saying, obviously, we hear the concerns in the community. We know there's a lot of fear. We have a lot of our own concerns. While I might not be out on every social media site, I can tell you that our department, we're working with so many different groups. We have a phenomenal partnership with Washington County, with the school district. So we have regular meetings with them. On a daily basis, I'm talking with Chief Posel with Woodbury, also with the sheriff. So there's a lot of communication. Our Chiefs Association, some of the others. I've had numerous conversations with our athletic association and what kind of messaging, what they can do, and so we hear the fears of people being afraid to show up at sporting events or different things. In the business community, I think earlier from the Woodbury Chamber, Lori had spoken. Cottage Grove, we also have a very good relationship with the Cottage Grove area chamber. We're meeting with a lot of the businesses. Last week, I spent a lot of time just showing up at businesses, giving them calls, dropping off my business card, just trying to connect with these businesses. And I can tell you a lot of the larger businesses that we have, they have their legal team. They've got some plans. It's a lot more of the smaller businesses that They don't necessarily have the access to the legal counsel or anything. So just trying to answer those questions. And we just really want to message with the different groups that we talk to is we don't check immigration status. We don't deal with immigration laws. So we certainly don't want people not to call the police department. We do a phenomenal job. We're there to protect and serve. So we don't want people to be fearful. So I think the big message is just encouraging people to get out with us. And out of all of these different community outreaches, I mean, we've been meeting with church groups. I could go on for a long time about what we're doing, but I love having conversations with people. I'm very accessible, whether they call my office, email me. We'll meet with individuals. I have great conversations, but a lot of the different organizations out there, if they want a presentation or they just want to get together, it doesn't necessarily have to be me as the chief. I have from the top down phenomenal staff, and we love getting out with the community. So I think the biggest message I want is, call us and we'll have these conversations. And that's every day I'm learning something new from someone. So we appreciate the feedback we get too. So
Thank you. Chief Posel, do you want to answer that as well?
Yeah, I would just say candidly, this opportunity here. Thank you for inviting us to have this platform in which to talk about what we do, and as importantly, what we don't do, what we are here to do, and what we're not here to do. So yeah, I would just echo what Chief Koerner said in terms of our availability and interest in connecting with individuals and groups. There's a lot of work being done in the business community or faith-based community or schools, not just a public safety department, but citywide, and having those bringing in our different departments to have conversations. This isn't just a public safety issue. This impacts all of our departments at the city, and bringing together leadership from those groups to connect with, again, business, faith-based organizations or schools, our connectivity across the county from a law enforcement perspective as well. We've put a great deal of effort and focus on that. At Woodbury, we have a multicultural advisory committee. This is a committee also made up of volunteer individuals from different cultures that come together to have conversations. So we're having these conversations in every way possible, not just with our multicultural advisory committee again, but with individuals and groups. And I would just say with this platform that again, if any of individuals or groups would like to have us out for a presentation or a conversation, give our office a call. If myself or Chief Koerner will be happy to have those conversations. We've been having those regularly, and I think the more we can be connecting with individuals and groups right now to keep them as informed as possible, that's certainly our goal.
Thank you. I have to say too, we have had, I'm just doing rough math here, at least close to 50 questions in our Q&A, and it looks like we've gotten some of them answered, but we will be sending on questions. I know, city's doing a FAQ page, and so just so everyone out there knows, it's they're all good questions. I'm gonna move us to wrapping up. I'm gonna give everybody our other panelists as well a little bit of time to, if there was anything you wanted to respond to. And also there's I guess my general wrap-up question is, what's the most important thing that residents should know right now, and where should they look for accurate information going forward? So I'm gonna go back to Christine Tucci Osorio. And I know you had some other comments throughout too, so if you wanted to respond to things now, you're free to do that. Otherwise, we've got our wrap-up question about what you want people to know.
Yeah, all good, all good. I'm just really grateful to the League of Women Voters for hosting this panel, and I think a couple takeaways. There is an amazing silver lining to all of this, if you can think of it that way, is the collaboration, the community coming together. And one thing I'll say, even though Woodbury has 3 school districts in it, and I'm the smallest portion of those 3 school districts, but you should know we all talk to each other every day, multiple times a day. We're all in communication, and I know our law enforcement agencies are doing the same thing. But we have never felt more supported by local law enforcement the collaboration. I think everyone's really in this to, um, keep our community safe and problem solve issues that are coming up. And so, um, I will just say that just know that behind the scenes, there's constant communication happening within each of our networks, but then across networks as well. And I will tell you, as a 30-year plus resident of Woodbury myself, um, I feel like we're in really good hands in terms of with our local law enforcement and the county leadership and the support that's out there. So it's a highly political situation, and as one of our chiefs said, any message you put out there has some different tails to it, or there's going to be pushback, there's going to be questions, but I think just trying to give everyone a little grace to remember that this is definitely an unusual and, as we've heard many times lately, unprecedented situation that we're in. But I'm really proud to be a part of this community and to be part of a group of organizations that are working so well together.
Thanks, Christine. I'm going to go next to Lori Steiger. So again, the question is, what are the most important things for residents to know right now? And I will say, it is a follow-up that was, where should people look for accurate information? People were asking in the comments, how to find businesses that need help right now.
I think social media has been great for finding the source of truth. I have the opportunity of talking to business owners, but sometimes even though we are a resource for them, we're the last person they think of calling, and it's social media first. So sometimes I'm finding out after you guys have alerted me. But I would like to echo some of the things that Christine said, and just talking about, leading with grace and with heart. And I think she's right. Guys, we're all going through this. None of us want to. It sucks. We survived the pandemic to be here. But when you look around, you have leaders in this community that lead with heart, they lead with grace, and we all want what's best for this community. We had our gala last Friday night. I am very proud to report that we have a very diverse group of members, and the people in that room were of all shapes, sizes, colors, and backgrounds. And we were there united to celebrate this amazing community, and it is. And we will get through this, and we are going to be the models of, you can overcome adversity, and we'll do it together. Look at the people around you. Look at the people. There's over 200 people on this call tonight. That says a lot about our community. So we'll get through it, and we just have to keep talking to each other, lead with grace, assume positive intent, and we'll get there.
Thanks, Lori. Next, I'm going to go to Christie Denson from Woodbury Community Foundation. So the question again was, what's the most important thing residents should know right now?
Yeah, I think, a night like tonight where we're able to have an important dialogue and ask questions, and for people that may sit on all sides of this issue, it's important to have those conversations and learn the facts. So I appreciate everybody's time tonight and sharing the facts, and so we can make informed decisions. As a community foundation, just on the side of the Woodbury Racial Equity Collaborative, I will add, that is an effort that's brought together leaders from all of the systems in Woodbury: public safety, government, county government, the business community, the nonprofit community, public health. And we have a group of leaders in this community that is committed to working on issues of racial equity. And so, once this settles down, we have work to do in the fallout of building back trust in our community in that way. And we've been working really hard on those issues, but we have more work to do. And so I would just, continue to stay in communication with us. And then, in addition, there was lots of charitable nonprofit efforts that we might not even know about that are happening in the community. And so I would just suggest connecting with the Community Foundation. Even if you're not a partner of ours, we love to amplify charitable things happening in our community. So we can we can invite you to our nonprofit roundtable so you can have some support. We can amplify what you're doing on social media and through our other networks. And so I would just encourage you to use the Community Foundation as a resource for charitable efforts.
Thanks, Christy. I'm going to ask that question next to Jeff. What's the most important thing for residents to know right now, and where should they look for accurate updates going forward?
Thanks for the question. I think the most important thing, and I'm going to cheat because it's things, is as much as we want to, be able to do what we hear the residents want us to do. Like at the meeting that Chief Polzel mentioned, we had hundreds and hundreds of people at City Hall. A lot of them said, "Kick ICE out of our community." We heard that. We hear the anxiety. We hear the fear. We're part of it. We're feeling it as well. As much as I'd like to say that we can, ease the fear, we can't kick them out. But what we can do is acknowledge the fear, the anxiety, the trauma that people are going through. We can listen, we can reach out, we can respond to the individual inquiries. Chief Polzel on Saturday morning spent his entire Saturday morning reaching out to the Somali community. And we have great leaders here that are putting, are really invested. They're charged up, they're fired up to help make this community a better place. Lastly, the thing we can do is inform based on facts, not getting political, but being transparent about what's going on and what we can do. To that end, as I mentioned before, our website, In Touch, get signed up there for updates, social media. Just email me, email Jason, email the council, our newsletter. And I know Chief Polzel is willing to go out and talk to folks as well. So am I. We're here at your disposal. We want to continue with our mission and our overall goal of making this a vibrant, premier community where everybody feels safe.
Chief Koerner, if you wanted to answer next, the question again is, what are the most important things residents should know right now, and where should they look for accurate updates going forward?
Sure. Now I get a follow up on, I thought Jeff had a great response there. So like Woodbury, we have a lot of outlets for communication, whether it's on our city webpage, Cottage Grove Connect, social media. So I think that one of the big takeaways is, we hear the residents, we hear what's going on, we hear the fear. So let's keep this communication going. I think this was really positive tonight. I look forward to different, whether just a resident, not just, but a resident or an organization reach out to us. We'd love to continue these conversations. So very informative for me to listen to what people's concerns are. I can only assume sometimes. But I appreciate it.
All right, and last but not least, Chief Polzel, if you'd like to answer the question, what are the most important things residents should know right now?
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. I think the most important thing is to know that we are looking for ways to support all of our neighbors. Our mission is to serve all people with compassion and courage. People can feel comfortable calling 911 if they have an emergency. We will be there for you, doing whatever we can to support you. Woodbury is a great community with strong connections. I know that we're going to overcome this, and I know that we're going to be stronger for it. So thank you for this platform and this opportunity to connect with the group and with the community.
I really want to give a heartfelt thanks to all of you. I really appreciate you being here and the information that you all shared. I'm going to turn it back over to Michelle Whitty to close us out.
Thank you. I think what we've all learned is there's no easy answers. It sounds like everybody's living in a gray area right now. And so I'm glad we can keep seeking out answers together. So again, thank you to LWV Woodbury-Cottage Grove area and Andrea Hobley for moderating, and to all our fabulous panelists and all the attendees who took time tonight to watch this. Also, thank you to True Lens Media, community media, for live streaming and recording this webinar, which will be available for viewing on True Lens YouTube channel. We've put that in the chat, youtube.com/@TrueLensCommunityMedia. There's a lot of questions. Oh my goodness, some really good ones that we were not able to get to, but we will share those with the City of Woodbury and Cottage Grove. And for Woodbury, we know to inform their frequently asked questions page, which is available at woodburymin.gov/ICE. And please check out the chat for other links we put in there for you. But again, that will be sent out via the follow-up email if you weren't able to capture those. So good night. Again, thank you all for taking the time to share and learn this evening. And we hope everyone stays safe tonight. Thank you.